Hey everybody, it's Carpo. Now I've decided I'm going to do my videos shorter. Notice that my videos are long, and I've noticed that a lot of the other people who have long videos, I tend to wander, my mind wanders, and I start wondering how many people actually watch the entire video. But when you start speaking from the heart, it comes from deep. So I'm going to try to keep them to 5 minutes or less here. But money, does it really exist? Money's a huge issue for people as far as people tend to be really angry with the corporations and with the status quo of how society is going and where we're distributing the wealth. And in the past, wealth was not described in monetary form, but rather the virtues and the way a person lived, whether they had enough food to eat. Wealth today doesn't seem to mean any of those things. The question of money is who has it and what is it? And for those of you who understand the fiat money system and that currency is really non-existent, you'll know where I'm going with this. But for those who don't know, money is the reason why inflation happens is because money is printed in excess of goods and services. It's a big, long, deep hole, and I'm not going to go into it. My question here is to just basically kind of try to corner the idea of people being afraid of the wrong people having money. Where is it spent? Where does it go? Now, there are a lot of people that have a lot of cash. I like to use drug dealers as a good example. People have always had an issue with drug dealers saying, well, they're making all this money off of society, and they're not doing anything for it except for selling drugs to people. True, but people are going to buy drugs anyway. The question isn't whether the drug dealer has money. The question is, where does that drug dealer spend his money? And the argument was always, well, it's sent back overseas to their homeland. Well, most drug dealers here are local, and most of the money stays local. The point being that the people who spend the money on the drugs, it ends up going into the pocket of the drug dealer, and in turn into the pockets of the local community stores and whatever that person chooses to buy, right? It's the same as a corporation, and this is the justification the corporations use. They say, well, we're job makers, and we all know that that's bullshit because they're paying their people less and less in order to make more and more money for themselves. But they still pay money to contractors, employees, people who maintain the buildings that they operate, people who create the tools for that company to use. So in the end, it is producing more money. However, more money to the lower class is spread out over such a wide area that it doesn't seem to have any real impact when they raise, say, the minimum wage 50 cents or a quarter or whatnot. And it doesn't really. But the service that exists depends on the demand. And if we're putting a demand on society for certain objects and items, then we're contributing to the massive demise of the monetary system ourselves. But even deeper, ultimately it's their game. It's not our game. And this is what I wanted to come to, was the whole idea that the money exists in a vacuum. It exists in a complete joke, in this ideal sense that if every person were to go to the bank, let's say, and cash in, we all know that a run on the banks would create a panic. They have less than 1% of the total money that exists supposedly in credit or in the world. And what it really comes down to is that the money is nothing, and we know this. And a lot of people will say, well, yeah, it doesn't seem like anything until you don't have any, and I know how that is because I'm broke. I've been broke for a long time. But I also know that these people who are in charge of what they call the money, really, it's not about the cash. It's not about the cash. It's about where's the demand and where are the services, because that's how we can kind of nail it down to what's going wrong, what's happening here. Because you and I can sit and talk about money all day, and we can have long, deep conversations about it. We can look deep into what people claim to make and what companies purport to make and the earnings that they claim to have earned, but we all know that it's all written off in bullshit anyway. As a small business owner, I know what it's like to even just try to write off one extra thing to save yourself a few bucks. I can't imagine trying to save a few billion. So, like I've said before, what it comes down to is the corporations can be as big as they want, but ultimately it's the board of directors and then ultimately the shareholders in the company who make the demands on the company. And it's the people in the lives of the shareholders that that make it a point to show them what matters to these people. In the long run, we are all responsible ultimately for our own demise because of how we live. And so it's not on us to change the economic system or to try to save it or to try to salvage the dollar. Likewise, it's not our responsibility to try to say it should crash or we should start over, nor is it in our place to say that we should all save gold and silver. You know, I'm a fan of silver, but I know that here's an example I've made but in the past, that somebody who lived, say, 1,000 years ago, who saved silver during a time of, well, they used silver for trade, so I guess there wasn't really separate money, but a person who had something that was of value could take that silver, say, when the economy collapsed, say in Rome or wherever you were, and you could go to a new place and use that silver still, because the economy had not collapsed in the area that you're traveling to. There's nowhere left for us to go. It's a worldwide economy now, and the digital age has made it to where I'm not going to go as far as to say when our economy collapses, the rest will, but it's very possible that they'll make that happen, because nobody's going to let the U.S. go down without a fight. And that's where we stand. That's where we stand. We have no real money. All we're doing is exchanging goods and services for paper. Silver's not going to be worth anything until a very long time after a, say, complete collapse, because people at the beginning are going to be wanting seeds, they're going to be wanting food, they're going to be wanting shelter and services to help them provide for their lifestyle. So just trying to say, don't worry about the money. Don't worry about who has it, because in the blink of an eye, it disappears, because it doesn't really exist. Now, when people have a stockpile of food, that's a different story. When people have a stockpile of, real goods, or when they're holding back services from the people, which they are. So I'm saying, let's put the fight where it belongs, right in the faces of the people. Let's not even worry about who's making the money, because it's really all a joke anyway, and there's no way for us to know exactly how much people are making, or even whether that money's worth anything. See? I don't even know where to go with this. It's just money. Money's a joke. And it doesn't really exist. We just have to remember that. Peace and love to everybody.